Call the meeting to order. Call the roll.
Trustee Fenton?
Here.
Trustee Dodge? Trustee Calabello?
Here.
Trustee Healy?
Here.
Trustee Katsinas?
Here.
Trustee Malani?
Here.
Mayor Pico?
Here.
Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So is Trustee Dodge on the line? Okay, well, he hasn't texted me, so, all right.
approval of the April 20th, 2020 committee of the whole meeting minutes.
Trustee Katsinas.
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the committee of the whole of April 20, 2020.
Second. Any questions or comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Fenton?
Abstain.
Trustee Calabello?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Mayor Pico?
Aye.
Finley Creek stabilization.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Malani.
I move to authorize staff to enter into negotiations with FWRD and finalize the details and cost of this project and present the details to the Board of Trustees for consideration. And I move to authorize staff to work with the property owners to finalize the temporary and/or permanent easements without any financial compensation to the property owner and present the details to the Board of Trustees for consideration. And I move to authorize the staff to evaluate a special services agreement to cover the maintenance costs of the creek stabilization and present the findings to the Board of Trustees for consideration.
Second.
So, Mayor, about 10 years ago, the village started to learn about a problem in the Tinley Creek where the creek was eroding and it was causing problems for property owners and the overall flow of the creek itself. So what we have in 2014, we started looking into it and started into a design and working with the WRD and came up with a plan that was going to resolve that problem at the time, but for many other reasons, which we will discuss in a minute with you, we couldn't move forward with that project. So the purpose of today's presentation is to update the committee on this stream bank stabilization, and then also discuss with you what are our next steps for this problem to take care of. So I have here Travis Perry with the Seabell engineering firm, who's our consultant for the project. I also have Sean Marquez, who's our village engineer. So we'll talk to you about this project and go through some details on that project.
Good evening, thanks for having me. So the NWRD, as part of the stormwater management for Cook County, was authorized to take control of all of Cook County. And as part of that proposal from the state legislature, they studied all of the watersheds in Cook County outside the city of Chicago. And tonight we're going to talk specifically about the outside watershed. So the county is a big watershed, and it takes water from the Little Calumet River here, and it takes that to the sanitary and ship canal, which is here, which borders the Nisqually River. We are down here, the Creek here, Marley Creek, so Orland Park is at the top of the watershed for Finley Creek. This is just to give you an idea of the scale of the watershed, and then Finley Creek here starts down here in the Fernway area, and then flows up north into Forest River District of Cook County, north and east. So as part of the watershed study, what NWRD considered as projects were those where residential structures were within 30 feet, the erosion was within 30 feet of the residential structure, and it would be considered for construction. So for Tinley Creek, we had two areas that were identified: Tinley Creek, Ticker 8, and then Ticker 7 on the north side of the village. So specifically, the southern portion goes from just south of 159th up to 86th Avenue, there's a break in the middle, and then the other one goes from Wheeler up to 151st Street. These are the specific locations where the MWRD is looking to perform the erosion, and as I mentioned before, this is 159th. There's a car wash at this location, so that section will be included. And then comes north along the strip center here, the shopping center, through a residential area of multi-family homes, and then stops at 86th Avenue. This is the Orland Condo Association, just there in the middle. The northern end of the section is all residential. It's the backyards of homes, it's all privately owned, and has some fairly severe erosion. So what the MWRD was proposing was a series of different types of armoring or bioengineering. So bioengineering is either the use of plants, soils, soil lifts, and then the structural portions of the armoring would be riprap, retaining walls. The worst sections would get a sheet pile, steel sheet pile wall with a concrete cap on top of it. And then there's also multiple levels of velocity reduction to slow the water down and keep it from feeding into banks. These are just different sections showing what's proposed. A rock vein, which is a velocity reduction technique. This is the wall I mentioned with the sheet piles. So basically, trying to pile steel driven in and then have the concrete wall for the worst sections. So this is, these are just several examples of the types of erosion that's out there. It is fairly severe. This is on Amelia Lane. You can see that it's almost sheer on this side of the creek, and then just as bad on the other side of the creek there. This is Hollywood, different residences along Hollywood, same sort of types of erosion. Just note on 159th. Here you can see it's almost out of the road. It's quite bad. Ballard Circle, there's different areas. Lots of residents have tried to stop it with various methods. Some have retaining walls, some have dropped landscape blocks, some have tried all sorts of methods, but essentially it's a much worse condition than what most of them can handle. And this one is really hard to see. It's kind of one of the more prominent areas. This is Whale Hollow. It's also a multi-family residence. It's just south of 151st Street. And this is not a residence structure, but it's a garage for residents. And you can see that the creek is actually eroded all the way to the piers of the foundation. And it had to come in since this picture was taken and added additional piers to keep that building supported. And this is actually the proposed plan for that area. It's kind of one of the highlights of the issues of this project is there's a number of easements that are needed, not just in this area, but all across the project. And as I mentioned earlier, it's all privately owned, so these easements need to come from the residents who live along there. They would benefit from the project the most, but they also would be required to get easements for access and for construction and then for future maintenance. Other issues, there's several areas that are Army Corps rated wetlands, so we have to get a permit from the Army Corps to be able to disturb those areas. But essentially, there's different types of bioengineering and armoring techniques that I mentioned to control this area. And you can see it's very skinny soil. It winds back and forth quite a bit in this area before it actually splits up and it's been rolled in flood condition. So the primary thing that Christy mentioned is the easements. MWRD was granted this authorization back around 2006 and started the process shortly thereafter in 2008, 2010. The design was about 98% completed in 2014, and at that time there was 31 easements that were identified either either permanent or construction, and only 9 have been granted to date. So we still have 22 outstanding private easements, and that's in addition to the utility crossing easements that would have to be figured out. This is just an example. So the MWRD at the time, so the MWRD developed this project. They were in complete control of it, and they sent this information. So for each resident property that was impacted, they would receive an exhibit like this one. And it's really hard to see with the light. It identifies the areas which would be proposed as permanent easement, temporary easement, and then it came with the actual legal document to transfer the property on the easement to the MWRD. Some of the other issues that I mentioned is the United States Army Corps of Engineer permit. There's actually one for each section that has since expired since the project was initiated in 2014, so that would be extended. We were able to work with the IDNR and the majority to get that extension granted last year, so it's good for 3 years. And then, of course, there's the issues associated with the cost. At the time that the plans were about 90%, they developed this estimate around $3 million. What we know, we've been out there since then, identified areas where the erosion has worsened, it's deteriorated, so this cost is likely to go up. And there's other areas that may not have been included in the original scope, which would likely be included now. Excuse me. And this is construction only. This doesn't include any additional design or any additional permitting that would be associated with the project. So what the village, or NWRD already has asked is for the village to consider some additional items, and that's for each to touch on those for the remaining presentation.
So we had a meeting with MWRD just last week to get an update from them. The village preference is that we want to take over this project, we can get this done quicker if MWRD pays for the entire construction cost. And then there's no easement cost to the village or to the project. MWRD's policy is that because this is a benefit to the homeowners, private homeowners, they do not want to pay for any easement that they will get out of this project for them to complete this project. And that is why one of the reasons that this project is on hold for the last 6 years, because only 9 property owners agreed to offer that easement, only one still holding it back. Our understanding, I have not personally talked to the other homeowners, which we will do very soon, is that they are looking for some financial compensation for them to give up some of their land or give us either permanent or temporary easement for this property. So for that reason, if those two conditions happen, I think the village staff is recommending that we should be able to take over the project. And MWRD is in agreement that they will do that if village can come back with these 2 options. So moving forward, we have to study and expand the project limits because 6 years have gone by. There's more erosion that is obvious on the site. We have to update the design and we have to come up with a total construction cost. It certainly will be more than $3 million. We're estimating just a gut check on that is probably in the $5 million type range. We don't know the final number. We also want to know what is the maintenance cost, because once we take over this project, the maintenance of this creek will be village responsibility forever. So we have discussed this internally with the village manager's office. We want to see what other ways out there for the homeowners to bear the cost of this maintenance of this creek. So we will certainly talk to you about that. Any engagement this project will have, which will be above and beyond the engineering judgment of the project, will be village responsibility. For example, if you want to enhance some landscaping area, anything else, sidewalk, walkways, anything like that, will be at village cost. We don't know that. Our intent is to keep the project within the engineering limits of this requirement. So the next step in that process is that we need to get the easement from all of the property owners after we get this done, these studies done. We will be meeting with the residents very shortly. But then one of the steps is to do a title search so that we know who are the right owners of those properties. If it's 31, it becomes 40 or 45, we need to know that. Probably timing-wise, that probably will be a cost to the village, but we will come back and let you know what that cost will be. KPJ can do a title search for us and we figure that out what that cost is. And then we'll study the creation of a special services agreement that will be a means to pay for the maintenance cost of the project. And our intent is to come up with a 20-year cost, and then after that, the village can reassess that value. The last piece
Go
of
back
that
one
is-
slide. Go back one slide and talk about, you didn't mention this, but eminent domain is an option if people don't turn over the easement.
Eminent domain is an option. I mentioned that, I'm sorry, I skipped it. If the property owners decline it, then the village have the right to go after the domain. One of the challenges that is generally takes about 2 years to go through the eminent domain process. Yes, and then there are legal costs to be paid by the way to go through that and have that in mind. Hopefully people will understand, we will do our best to educate them that this is a good benefit. Some are not right at the edge of their property, some are already in that, which I try to show you in the picture. cooperate with the village to get this done. So that's the reason. We just updated with the MWRD. They're very cooperative. They're in fact excited that this project will go and will be get done. They have budgeted over $3 million for the last 6 years. It's sitting in their budget. They are not being able to move forward. They agree that they will be able to go back to the board with the engineering judgments if they need more money. So we have that understanding of their staff. And then, of course, part of that process will be an IDA negotiation with the MWRD at how this will be transferred and will take over and what conditions will be applicated to us. We have estimated that it will take about 12 to 18 months to get this process done in terms of design and approval and bidding and all of that. But again, that's dependent on that we do not run into major issues on the project. Easement will be certainly something that we will have to work with, permits, IDA, and then availability of funding. We're not expecting that we will have to pay any cost into it, so it will all be coming from the MWRD and the project. I mentioned that about the eminent domain. We're asking for 3 authorizations. Mr. Mawani already read about that, and that's the end of the
Okay. So my overall comment on this is essentially there is a project in place to fix this because we've all gotten emails about this. But this creek sits on their property, so it's a property they purchased knowing there was a creek. And MWRD, which gets their money from all of the property taxpayers throughout the county, has labeled this as a project. We think it's $5 million, so rough math, it's $150,000 to $170,000 per home that they're getting in improvements to their land. It's going to help. It's going to stabilize their creek. It's going to make it look better. It's going to stop the erosion, and it's going to give them some of their yard back to be usable. Is that correct? And they're getting basically a $150,000 benefit each. So I would concur that we shouldn't be paying for the easement. Again, it's an easement. It's not they still own it, but it's an easement. No different than an easement for electricity or something like that. So, are there any questions from the rest of the board? Trustee Allen.
I know that Village Square, which is directly east of this, had issues in 199 or 5 winter flooding. We did a lot of construction, maybe more, but this is all over the stuff like. Do you think this was a new problem because of that, or do you think
These 2 sections are all south of where we tied it.
so it's not, it was like, not pushing water from one person to the other person?
Someone might be, it's not us. Someone might be doing it, it's not us.
Okay, I just want to make sure that,
Yeah, the project's been on the books for 6 years, which means it was engineered probably a couple of years before that. So, you know.
well, we fixed it, I want to say 6, 7, 8, right after the World Series.
So we're going to engineer and construct this part, and MWRD is going to pay for the engineering and the construction. Are there any, if we're going to we have the maintenance costs going forward, are there any guarantees provided by the engineering or the construction company that there won't be any more erosion?
There's a maintenance and monitoring period required by MWRD for 5 years following construction.
How long is that?
5 years.
5 years. I don't know if that's a straight guarantee, but it does meet specific performance requirements. Very specific.
So trustee, we asked this question also, just if there are new areas that comes up, let's say after this project is done, new areas and new erosion starts to show up, and that meets MWRD's design requirements, they'll consider that as a new project, and then they'll come back and fix that.
Any other questions or comments? Anyone from the public that wants to speak on this issue? It's in the creek. Okay. Call the roll.
Trustee Malani?
Aye.
Trustee Healy?
Aye.
Trustee Patton?
Aye.
Trustee Council?
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas?
Aye.
Mayor Pino?
Aye. Motion carries.
Long-term facility oversight?
So could you guys give us a quick briefing on the long-term care facilities? Essentially, the board in our last resolution directed our staff to look at what oversight possibilities we have of long-term care facilities, because it's something that the state clearly through the COVID-related issues has failed. Since 50% of the deaths, approximately 50% of the deaths in the state have been long-term care facilities. And I know even nationwide it's approaching that number as well. And clearly in Orland Park, I think there's 31 deaths, at least 29, maybe 30 of those are from long-term care facilities. So there is a definite issue with a lack of oversight from the state's part. So what did you turn up in your research? And could you give us a quick briefing on that?
So, Mr. Mayor, what Ahmad started doing was first we reached out to other communities that have health departments. And what he found was that there's very few health departments or state certified health department communities. These communities, they were grandfathered. So for example, Skokie has a health department that went back 100 years, and they were state certified. So now the application no longer does state certified municipal health departments. So that was not an option anymore. But even if it was an option, the way they paid for their services is a combination of fee-for-services, property tax, state funding, and federal sources. So there is no, even if we were to become one, there's no guaranteed funding source for that. As an alternate, under the Nursing Home Care Act, it does grant municipalities the ability to pass ordinances to regulate nursing homes. And another section of ordinance, the village should charge for licensing and renewal fees. Now, right now, nursing homes are regulated by the federal government through their Medicare and Medicaid plans, through IDPH, and if we were to add the municipality as a regulator, then we would have to come up with a revenue source to do that. Now, obviously, the fees and licensing wouldn't be enough to cover something like that. So it's an uphill battle to be able to, for the municipality to be doing regulations of long-term care facilities. Very unusual. Most municipalities don't do it. So in a nutshell, that's the report that you folks have attached to your agenda.
So if I summarize, one, we can't become nor do I think we want to become a public health department. And then the second is we do have some ability to regulate, but the question would be how would we fund it? And it would be yet another set of regulations. Is that correct? Okay. Does the board have any comments or questions? I have some, but I'll wait.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Bennett.
Thank you for doing the research, and you and I had spoken about this during the week, and I totally agree with you. At this time, I don't see where we would, number one, we have to hire staff, and we have to come up with more money, and right now, and finding more money for our budget is just not existing. And although the state has people that are supposed to be doing this, unfortunately, I think they're missing their little boat there with taking care of all these individuals, and it's sad. So I think we should just really not what we can do about it, except stay on our lawmakers and get their act together with that.
So I'd be happy to stay on our lawmakers, but I think there's also our facilities bear responsibility. I mean, ultimately, yeah, they're regulated, but ultimately, they're businesses, and these things have happened on their watch. And they should know their businesses, and whether someone's regulating them or not, they should regulate themselves. So what I would suggest, George, and if the board concurs, is to, once we kind of get past this, now is not the time, but maybe a couple months from now, is let's get a meeting of all of the CEOs of all of those groups, and we'll sit down and have a discussion, and we'll make it clear that one of our options is to regulate them and to find a way to fund it through them if they can't clean up their act and regulate themselves. And to some degree, we have a couple that have had only a couple cases, no deaths, and then we have others that have over 10 deaths each. So it's a little bit of regulate your own industry. And we'll have that discussion, and it's time for them to take part. They're sitting in our village. We owe it to the residents of those facilities. We owe that to the people who either put their families in these facilities or our own residents who put these families in their facilities to make sure those people are cared for. We don't have regulatory power. We certainly have the power to sit down and make sure that they're taking some, because I want to know what the steps they're going to take, irregardless of the state, because we know they may not do anything. I don't think anyone here would disagree. But those businesses have a responsibility to do something. Does anybody disagree with that? Okay. So if you guys could arrange that, put it on our plate for, now's not the time because they're pretty busy, got their hands full, but in a couple months, I think it's appropriate. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, next one.
143rd Street, Noiswell.
Trustees, we want to update you about the 141st Street project and how the design is proceeding. The one more element that has come up is about the noise wall. We want to update you on that, how that noise wall will fit into the project. So as of now, phase 1 engineering study is in progress. We're almost in the last 2 to 3 months of it. We should be able to wrap that up and submit to IDOT, which say by end of August, which is September, something in that time frame. We have completed an environmental study, and part of that environmental study was a noise study that we had to do, because now 143rd Street, when it will be built, we'll have 5 years to do anything for you of tunneling that requires state and federal requirements to study noise level, how we will impact the neighboring property. So that's what we've done. Based on that noise study, the subdivision called Courtyard, which is just west of Wolf Road, northwest of Wolf Road, requires a noise wall. It's directly adjacent to 143rd Street, between Compton Court and First Midwest Bank Driveway. That's the land where it's located. If I can show you, this is the picture that I have. Right here is the Compton Court, and this is the driveway we have, and then here is the wall on that side. So the wall is going to be 400 feet in length, and it will need to be 10 foot high. The options that the IDOT offers, they're all made out of precast, and there are many styles available. And we have just a preliminary suggestion that we select a wall style like that. The reason for that, our suggestion for that is very similar to what we have on the rainbow. Stamped concrete look with stains, several elements were stained into it. So it will create kind of a signature for Orland Park or anywhere else we add a wall. This is something that we can look into it. This is not a decision point at this time. It will come back probably a year or so later when we're in phase 2 to make that determination, but that's what we start preliminary talk on that. The process for this wall to be included in the project is IDOT and Federal Highway Administration require that the property owners that will be benefited from this wall, they are only there the ones who can vote on it, and then if they accept it, then the wall will be added. The village board or village staff has no say in that regard. If they reject it, the wall will not be added. If they say it will be, that IDOT will add the project. Will add the wall in the project. And majority is required. If there are tenants and landowners, only one of them can vote on it, but either party can vote on it. It will be decided by them. So we're scheduling a noise forum on June 9th to our Zoom call, and we have invited these 9 property owners that will be, hopefully they all will be able to join that call, but we'll give them the update on the project and the details about the project, and then they have already received a form that they can use to vote on this wall, and we need to have their responses back by June 23rd or date. The stamp by June 23rd for us to accept it. And for today, it's for discussion only, and information only, and we will come back to you at a later date when we are ready to make some recommendations. That's the end of it.
Okay. So the homeowners will vote whether they want the wall or not. And if the wall it does go in, it's 10 by 400, so we're talking about maybe $400,000 to the project.
That's the estimate.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Okay. Do we have any non-scheduled citizens, visitors signed in to speak? Okay. Did any of the visitors that are here want to speak? So I think there's people here for the grasslands. That's right? Okay. The people here for the grasslands?
Yeah.
Can we just give a brief update on the grasslands? It's just discussion. Okay. It's the same stuff we kind of talked about the other day. You have some of the stuff from the other day that we,
Yeah, we should have the overlay photos of it.
the overlay of the watershed.
Mr. Mayor, while you're getting this ready, what staff has been doing with, working with the consultant is putting together an FAQ for the residents of the subdivision. The FAQ is just been completed this afternoon. Tomorrow, staff is going to be handing out, going door to door, just to hand out that FAQ about the recent rain event. And so what they'll do right now is they'll just kind of, it's a sneak preview of the questions and the answers that the FAQ includes.
I can speak to it without.
Yeah, what would be particularly helpful is you have those couple overlay photos that show, where the watershed is, and then also what was done in the past for that. I think that would
It should be on this exhibit if we get that one, everybody get right. It's okay.
That's the FAQ, but where's,
It's on.
it's our honor? Okay. So is that do we have the map of the pre and, you're just going to speak to it?
Yeah, I'm just gonna.
Okay. There's a little bit better map that shows precisely where the watershed goes to, but.
I think I'll break down those. So the Governor Henry owns a farm that's located west of the Grassland subdivision, and I think what the mayor is referring to is that the subdivision was built in the middle of a historical overland flow path. So what you can see from this exhibit, and maybe if she come out a little bit, but this overland flow path, there's almost 50 acres that are tributary to this area on the north side of the subdivision, and then it used to flow overland down and towards the floodplain of Marley Creek. And there are two other locations. This one here is about 7 acres. This one here is about 5 acres, and then there's a small one down there at the very south end of the subdivision. The subdivision is kind of broken into two parts. The south end here goes to this detention basin. The north end all flows down and goes to this detention basin right along the creek. And what you see in these areas is the overland flow that comes from the farm has to be collected through storm sewers, which are the pink pipes shown on the map. You can see they go all over the place. But there are specific ones that take the storm water from the west and take it back to the east to the detention basin. In the case of this one, at the very north end, it was I believe it was a 27-inch, and it was not large enough to convey all the stormwater that was coming in. So the village worked with the Army Corps and IDR at the time to build part of a detention basin. So this basin is only about half the inch what it will be later this year. And right now it's about 9 acre feet, and when it's completed, it'll be 22 acre feet. The NWRD is going to fund that additional structure and additional storage. So that will,
And originally, that didn't exist, correct?
correct, yes, correct.
So that didn't exist at all when this was first built, and those overland flow paths were, that the subdivision was built right between, that water had to go somewhere, so it went through the subdivision, which, when it was first built, as I recall, there was a lot of flooding.
Yep, exactly.
Correct?
What Mayor's referring to is the 03, 04, when we did the previous flood study, the overland flow, before this basin was here, it deposited down here as steeplechase, and it was up to the bottom of the dirt and mud, was up to the bottom of the mailboxes, and we removed the inboarder. So that was when the village came in and constructed this portion of it to alleviate that flooding. In addition to that, knowing that this area was not complete to the 100-year level of protection that they wanted, they installed a berm along the north end of these townhomes that directs the overland flow from this basin right now out onto the crest and down to steeplechase. I believe this last comment showed that we're doing fairly well. But what continues to happen,
And so what he's referring to, just because we all got this, I believe, you guys all got the video with the water running around. So a berm was built to do exactly that and run that river around it. And while that river looks horrible, that river was actually designed to, in case they had an event like this, so it didn't go in the house and it went into the street like it did. So it actually operated as it was supposed to, correct?
That townhome, all the, there's 4 units in it. The first 3 got water overland flow into their basements during that last minute.
During this one?
No. The one where the berm was looking for.
Yeah, correct. They were getting water before, and the berm was put in place in case we had an event like this to stop it, divert it into the street, which is what happened. There was obviously, a fair amount of water in the street, but it did exactly as designed to divert that water. So that actually worked as designed.
Correct.
Okay.
In the other locations, the storm sewers that are adjacent to the farm field, the village at the time that the work was completed for the basin came in and installed high-capacity inlets. So, most people see the inlets, it's the one flat on the ground. These other inlets, they have a larger gap to be able to take more stormwater and more debris, because what you see from the farm field, and honestly, whether it's being farmed or not, is the silage and debris from the farm field gets caught in the inlets, and the inlets get backed up, and then the water starts to build up, and then it needs to flow overland again. And that would have happened regardless of whether these inlets were clear or not, because of the amount of rain we had in a short amount of time, those pipes are going to flow with water. So when those pipes fill up with water, the water has to have some place to go, so we call those overland flow paths. So that's all these black arrows that you see all over the subdivision. So when the pipes can no longer take the water, the water should build up and go between the homes and then make its way out to the street. But then sometimes these overland flow routes get blocked, sometimes naturally, sometimes unnaturally. So sheds, pools, garages, fences, a lot of times block these overland flow routes and do not allow water to go where it's supposed to. Landscaping is something that we're going to have a lot. So sometimes residents don't understand that that's where the water needs to go, and sometimes they do intentionally because they think that they're keeping the stormwater out, but really they're like just diverting it to a different location. So in the case of these, the off-site flows, there's a couple different things that needs to happen for this to operate correctly, and that is one, the pipe and the inlets need to be clear of debris, and then second, the overland flow paths to carry the water once the pipes capacity seated need to be cleared. The fact that there's water in a yard, in a backyard, in a side yard, or in the street is our preference. We don't want the homes, obviously, but anytime we have one of those locations, then most engineers find that acceptance. So, short version.
So just to summarize, water in yards, water in side yards, water in the street, yeah, it sucks. But once the system, and we saw this the other day, once the system stops raining, and we got an awful lot of rain, 2.5 inches in 30 minutes. I know my backyard, the first time I've ever seen a pond, and it was there until it stopped, and then 10 minutes later it drained out because the whole system just was overwhelmed, couldn't keep up. The issue that's concerning, so I don't care about water in yards, water in streets, because, because obviously I understand that. I think where we all have concerns is water in homes, and I believe there were, what, 2 homes? Or maybe it's been updated, but 2 homes that took water in their basements?
More than that. There's way more.
4.
Just here, there's still more.
So, I mean, how many are we aware of from staff?
2 that I'm aware of.
Okay, all right. And so we'll get with the other homeowners and find out, again, if it was seepage or if it's water going in over the top and coming through the yards, because we need to know where that water's coming from to know. Okay, so we had houses get it, and then from your perspective, and we were out there, what were the causes of the water going in those backyards? Because obviously we haven't had that happen since we did the work. I know we're planning on getting even more capacity, which helps. It's going to help keep the street and the yards dry. But it's worked for how many years? Over a decade.
Yep.
And we've had some big rain events. So what happened in this particular event?
Well, in this particular event, there's a location for I guess I would call it the middle inlet, but it's definitely been, the water from the farm is not even getting directly into the inlet itself. So it's being diverted either north and south of the inlet and around the location where it's supposed to be.
Is that the inlet that's inside the fence?
Yes.
So there's a fence around the inlet. Have we been able to determine if we permitted the fence to go around that location? What is that?
There is a permit for that.
So we permitted someone to build a fence in front of that, behind that inlet.
We haven't determined whether there's a condition or not. There's a permit for the overall fence, but we have not determined yet whether we ask them to go around it or allow underneath the fence to get the water.
Well, you need to determine that.
Yes, we are.
Because obviously we can't approve something like that and not have the water getting to the inlet. Okay? All right, and then what else?
So, which inlet are you talking about? Can you point to which inlet on the map has the fence in?
It's off of Rainbow Circle, which I believe is right here. And so it's approximately it's the second house in from.
That's the house behind it. We got flood basement, house behind it.
Okay, so there's that inlet that no water can get to because of the fence that's there. So it just, and the size of the inlet, it's about this and it's about this high, right?
It's quite a.
It's pretty noticeable. It's not your normal sewer inlet. So there was that, and then what other issues did we have with this particular event?
We noticed, we physically visited this site also, we saw that there are some sandbags that have been put at the bottom of the fences, which prohibited water as we would use it.
So it's diverting the water.
It's diverting the water from unintended route to the land.
Okay. All right. And
Farm field itself.
so, and
Can I
then
speak, please? Real quick?
well, hold on a
I'm
second.
going to speak about the sandbags.
Okay,
because you keep
but
skipping.
hold on a second. Okay, we're engaging right now, so then we'll give you an opportunity to speak. So what is the what other issue? I mean, I know you talked about other issues, so give me all of the issues. Don't just give me one at a time, so I have to keep pulling them out of here.
Right, the runoff from the farm field itself hasn't been farmed in some time, and we of course have noise on record, so there's very little absorption from the farm field itself. Runoff is, the moisture condition is producing all runoff.
Okay, so the farm field's not farmed, so obviously it's not grabbing any of that water.
Right.
It's not tilled, so now the water runs like a sheet across the top, so that's not a helpful situation, okay? And,
Here you
then,
mentioned
and
about-
there's another inlet, right?
Yes.
And I'm trying to pull all this information out. Just give it to me. Give it all to us.
Yes, and that inlet was blocked. It had debris in it, so it was not.
So that one's accessible, but that one had debris clogging. Correct?
Yes.
So
Maintenance, so yes, exactly, sorry. So maintenance of the inlets is vital to their function. And it's not likely that village staff can be there all the time. So it would be behoove the homeowners to check their inlets before, during, and after the storm event, especially this location, because you get all the debris. So even if village staff goes out before the storm event and clears it, like this one is now, the next rainfall is likely going to fall.
Okay, so we have, just to be clear, I think you hit them all now. So we've got one inlet that's blocked by a fence. We've got one inlet that had debris that blocked it, so no water is being taken into that, correct? We have even more rainfall than a normal massive event. We have more runoff than normal because it's an untilled field. It's fallow, so the water's running off, correct? And then we have diversion problems, which, you know, may be well intended, but are actually stopping the water from flowing where we wanted it to flow. Is that correct?
And I think there's also the recommendation of not mowing on the other side of the fence.
Richard mentioned that, yeah, there's some sort of buffer zone between the.
Which will stop some of the debris and and slow down the water flow, correct? All right. So, and what that is, just so everyone knows, is that instead of mowing all the way to the farm field, it's leaving a buffer of a couple feet of weed and growth, because that stops the farm field from dumping out onto that land as quickly. It helps the erosion. Okay. So now do we have it all? Now, do the board members have any questions?
Not about this particular issue, is there any policy-wise, because I feel like every time we have flooding issues, because someone, and let's not talk about this particular, it's every time we have a flooding issue, it's usually landscaping in the way, or it's not only man-made, but it's obstructed by the resident not knowing it. What's the policy? And flooding is very dear to my heart. What is the policy we can do? Again, not about this, but overall as a village, they don't have to put a fence in the way or a berm in the way. What's the policy we can do as a village board?
And I know you've heard the story before because we discussed it intimately with your situation. But I mean, it's codified code-wise, it's already there. It really is, it's an enforcement issue, but it comes down to, you know, staff and availability and time. And unfortunately, it only comes up when it rains really hard. You know, resident turnover, so even when the village approves a subdivision and it gets built correctly, designed correctly and built correctly, the next time a new homeowner comes in, they can change it instantly. You know, the mayor mentioned the fence things. That's a good thing, but even if you permit it correctly and it's in the field, they may make changes that they think are going to benefit themselves or the homeowner, and then it causes problems for other homeowners. And even if the fence is designed and permitted correctly, maybe they put things back there. There's just so many variables that produce these events. And even this one, the amount of rain may have caused these to come to the surface. I mean, it's been working fine for a number of years. We've been out there plenty of time between 2003 and now, and there's been virtually no issues. And then now something like this happens, and kind of the perfect storm, all the issues, and the amount of rain that we're going forefront.
Well, at the end of the day, we can't inspect 22,000 backyards. I'll just, my own experience as staff knows, and I have 3 storm inlet catch basins in my backyard, 3 different corners. So I'm very familiar with water in the entire subdivision finding its way to my yard. So I see, but I also know well enough about how drainage flows to when I have a 2.5-inch rainstorm, I'm out there making sure that all 3 of those inlets are open. So that, but I know that. So and obviously we can't get staff to all the inlets throughout town. So I think part of this is an education thing, and part of it is each of these instances that happen. I mean, you think about how much water we took on 2.5 inches in 30 minutes. I mean, it's pretty significant. And we had, no offense to anyone here, we had a few houses flood through 22,000 homes. So the system in Orland Park's working pretty well. But unfortunately, it's these events that highlight where there's a weakness in the system, and this is kind of highlighting that.
I mean, I understand your point there. It's just, I don't want to wake up like I did twice with feet of water in the basement. So I wish we had some kind of policy where we could preempt some of these things. I know enough staff do it on that. I think it's something I'm trying to be more aggressive.
Well, I mean, we just had a 2.5-inch and 30-minute rainfall, which is about as bad as it gets. Would you say? I mean, I'm sure we can see worse, but have we seen worse? Probably not. And I think that tells us a lot about what's going on. It tells us that there is one area where we have an issue and we've got to fix it. but the rest of the town didn't have that issue. Yeah, streets, my end of my street had water on it, my yard had a lot of water in it. It didn't come near my house, and it drained 10 minutes after it stopped, which is what's supposed to happen. You know, some people don't like the fact that they get water in their backyard, but that I'm not worried about. I worry about water in houses, which we obviously had 4 people have.
And sometimes you run into a case where a neighbor doesn't want to, be a tattletale and tell the other neighbor, they're trying to be neighbors and they live next to each other and they could see situations probably we could have corrected the code enforcement prior to something like this happening. But if we don't know about it, we can't. Sarah.
The mayor's in our code that if there is a flood path in anybody's backyard and it's considered, like I said, it's an easement, it's the responsibility of the property owner to maintain in its original shape. And if they don't see that, let them know if they are changing it themselves, that's a violation.
Well, understood, but it's still an education issue, and we obviously can't shoot grades at 22,000 homes. I mean, it's not feasible.
And as far as the education, and I don't know if you scroll up there, what staff has done is they put together a FAQ specifically for this subdivision. And as I mentioned earlier, staff is going to be handing those out door to door tomorrow. And there's going to be contact information because there's going to be unique situations per property. But what it does here, it's going to talk about all the things that homeowners can do and all of the things that the village is going to be doing with regard to this. So I know there's probably a lot of questions from people here in the public, but I think if we could just have this opportunity first to get these to the folks, and then...
Well, they're here now, so they're going to have an opportunity to speak, so just be ready to answer them.
Okay.
All right? So if anybody wants to speak, you need to say who you are, you need to go to the, well, the microphone's not working, is it? But still go over to the microphone.
Can they come up to the front where the other one is?
What's that?
Probably right here in the middle.
Yeah, you just come to the middle, I guess, and this will get it, if anybody wants to speak.
Yeah, I'll go. Okay, so I'm Orland.
We're not going to be able to hear you, and we need this on, so if you could take off your mask. So. But yeah, you can just, okay. Well, if you just stand back there.
And then speak towards you.
Just speak towards here, and you need to tell us who you are, your address, and then first.
I have a storm drain behind my fence that is the one that collects from the farm. Further south, storm drain. There's also another thing within my farm. The storm drain south, on the south end of my fence, outside, was they recently came and dug and made a stream from a natural erosion problem that has been flooding my area since we moved in. The neighbor south, north of me, because that's the direction of flow downstream from gravity, has been receiving that water, she can also back it up. The storm drain within my yard is always free. The yard still floods. We put in a pool. We built it on a retention wall because we know about this water. It is these 8-10 inches off of ground level. The fence that we put up has a gap between the bottom and the ground, in which on camera, and I have minute-by-minute photos of this water from the north side and the south side, all the way from the west, pouring towards my house within minutes. Not an hour, not 30 minutes, I'm talking 5 minutes. It poured in and filled up above foundational level into my house. Muddy water.
Okay.
There is no problem with that. The sandbags were placed 2 days later by myself to attempt to stop any future pouring into my basement and my yard and dumping into my pool. It was above pool level.
So,
From fence, no, it's not a flow issue. It was a quantity in a short amount of time. The storm drain is south of the flow. The storm drain is higher than the flow coming in to mine and every other person north house. It's not going to go upstream to go into the ground.
so my question for you, you said you have a pool and a retaining wall. When were those put in?
Last year.
Okay, so what we have is the changes, as far as, back to the point of water in the backyards, I'd be blunt, it's not something that we concern ourselves with in the event, because that's how it's designed. What's changed in your yard is a pool and a retaining wall. So what we have to do is we have to go back and look at all the permitting on that and say the same thing is, how does this happen? We have to look and see how is that impacting the flow, and we have to know if it is impacting the flow in a way that's diverting even more water towards the basement. I don't know that it is or isn't, but we need to know the answer to that, and we need to understand why, if we have an inlet right above that happened. If that's the case, I don't know if it is the case. It may be designed perfectly fine, and it may just be that we had 2.5 inches extra, 2.5 inches of water. But that's what we need to know. So, because that should have been caught, if in fact it's not correct, should have been caught in the permit process.
The flow is from west to east. My backyard backs up to this. The retention wall is higher. If anything, would have kept it away from my house, not made more come in.
Well, the way the flow works, you haven't taken water before this year, correct?
It stays in grass.
Okay, it stays in the grass. Well, and you've added a pool and you've added a pool and a retaining wall.
That is east of it.
Okay, but that's the change that is a change to what has happened in your yard. We have to have our engineers look at it to see what is actually
Okay,
impacted.
all right, I made my statements, thank you.
Mayor? I'm Josh Allison, 16832 Stevens Street Parkway, and in addition to the email I sent all of you earlier, I have photos, I don't believe you of the flooding that we had during this incident. It's very interesting what you just said about that fence. Imagine if the same homeowner who has the fence had routinely taken his grass clippings and his tree branches and trimmings from his bushes and just threw it over the fence in that farm. I think it'd be absolutely fantastic if we could get someone from Public Works, someone to come out and meet with Dee and me and anybody else who wants to walk the field behind our houses to see the work that you guys have done, which kept us dry for 20 years, and see what has happened now that's changed the course of the water. Is it from someone throwing his damn bushes and hedges over the fence? Is it corn husks from the field that have filled it up? I understand that you guys are working on this, and that you're talking about new sewer caps and things that can be done. It sure would make me feel better to take a walk someday, 15 minutes from the Weyerwalter house up north of us, all the way down to Summercrest perhaps, and see that if this was cleared out, if that was cleared out, if this was maintained, we might not have any problems.
I think you guys did walk it, right? Yeah. And
I wish I had been with that.
So I think that's part of what they said, is that part of the issue here is the blockages, is some of the changes that have happened.
Can we enforce in terms of some of these issues with the fence and the grass clippings? And how do you pick out a neighbor, without mentioning names here, and say, hey, buddy, your responsibility is to clear this off?
Well, that's part of, as they said, the frequently asked questions. We've been trying to get to the bottom of it. That's part of having the frequently asked questions and going door to door and giving them to folks, and to also inform people without going out and, making, publicly ostracizing someone. So that's part of the goal, is to educate people, because in some cases, the actions they've taken may have been well-intentioned and are also causing issues at another location as well. So I think that's the intent, correct? Is to go out and meet with everybody on that site. And then also, I know you're planning on meeting with the owners, Gallagher and Henry, to see what they can do regarding the farm field, because obviously that's a huge problem. There's a lot more runoff coming than has in the past. That may be the biggest contributing factor of all of this, is the fact that it's not farmed.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
do we not have a form on our website that people can, if they see some infraction, they can report it through the website? Or is
I've
it-
used it several times, and nothing's ever been done, to my knowledge.
Joel, you take a note? That?
So one of the things that we are going to have relatively soon is we are going to have a 311 system, online 311 system. So it will be an app and on our website where you will be able, residents will be able to submit potholes or complaints or any of the other stuff. We're about a month away before start beta testing that, and that it's going to be a huge asset to Joe and Public Works and frankly all of our departments, so that we're going to be able to track these issues quicker and make sure nothing falls through the cracks.
George, I think sometimes folks may be hesitant, like you were saying, John, to report the neighbor. So is there any way that there's some anonymity to the reporter without getting ridiculous? If your neighbor's doing something, you don't want your neighbor to know you reported them for fear, you have to look next to them.
It is anonymous, correct? Our reports of those things are anonymous, yes, they are.
Ours are, but then the person like yourself, you have to put your information in. Now, the village keeps who reported it quiet.
That's my point.
So once we have it ready, we'll have that policy of how, whether anonymous, non-anonymous.
All of our complaints right now are anonymous.
Okay.
That's what
So
I'm
even
trying
though
to
they're filling out the form with their name,
Correct.
the village doesn't
We know,
share
but we don't, that information is not
That's
shared.
true.
Right.
Cindy, when I was probably at the moment, because you're a realtor, you understand.
Yes, I do, and I remember you, sir.
Okay, the water came, you knew it because you said it was in your backyard. You saw the pond in your backyard, it didn't get to your house. You expressed a concern about flooding. In about 15 minutes' time that Saturday, I said to my wife, did you open the window in the basement?
Oh,
What happened?
I believe you.
The window well, the escape well, filled to the top, broke through, the glass went everywhere. It was like Niagara Falls, I have a video on it. At the end of the story, we had 6 to 12 inches of water in our basement. Everything is gone, and we call Allstate Insurance. No, the average homeowner doesn't understand. You are not covered for flood damage. Not.
Do twice, sir. Not exactly right.
It's our problem. And our basement is gone, everything in it. Possibly the 2 furnaces, the 8 coils, that's another story. It's our problem. And I'll cry over here or something later. Thank you for your time.
Trustee Eaton.
George, when we get this new system, if somebody makes a call and puts a complaint, will they be able to look online and see what's being done about it?
Absolutely.
So there will be, somebody could call it here, they can track what's happening.
So this CRM, customer resource management, that's exactly that's one of the benefits of that. Is once they're registered, they're going to get notification that it's been received, and then there's a history. They will be able to go back even for all of theirs. So it's a very good tool that we need to get, that we absolutely have to, and we're pushing staff to get that done. And it has a mobile app with GPS. So you got a pothole, you can snap a picture, and that's how we'll get it.
Any other comments from the board? All right, the last comment I'll make on that is this system, and Trustee Calandrello and Trustee Fenton can vouch for this. The system was supposedly being implemented when I walked, shortly after I walked in the door. So that ball's been dropped, and none of those people are here anymore. But let's make sure, George, Joel, you get that system working and get it working quickly, because we've been hearing about it for 3 years, and it's not here yet. And it needs to be here, because technology we need to know, and we can track it. And I know, George, you feel exactly like I do. We hate coming in and saying, why didn't this get done? We knew about it, why didn't it get done? And for us to have to keep following up on it every week is absurd. So those are things that we have to fix.
So right now, the goal is the end of the month, so I think if everything goes well, I think we're going to do a little demo for the first meeting.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. All right, with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'm just gonna,
Okay.
don't want to keep everybody too much longer. I'm Rebecca Webster. I'm 16860 Cedar Chase Parkway. I live just north of D. And we got water in our basement because our escape window filled up in between our 2 houses because there was so much water coming from her backyard. That's the first time that we've had water. And I think that it has to do with the amount of water coming from the field is more than it's been before. There was a heavy rainstorm about 2 or 3 weeks before this last one, and thank goodness the village had been out there and we had created that new pathway for the water off the farm field to go to the drain that's 2 houses south of me. And I think that worked beautifully at that other really heavy rainstorm. I was out there with my galoshes watching the water channel correctly towards that drain. But I couldn't believe how much water it was. And then the next rain came and even
30 minutes, I mean, my gutters were overflowing, so, I mean, it's just, it's not an event that any engineer, anywhere, that they don't plan for those events. And it's just, because it's just, they're just so very, very rare, you can't engineer your system to handle it, you can't afford the cost of doing that. But the idea is for when it does, for like my backyard to build up, and that's okay because it's my yard. It's supposed to be in the yard. I don't care if it's in the yard, right? And so what we want to do is keep it out of houses. So I agree with you. I think it has a lot to do with the field. I think we all agree it has a lot to do with the field because if it's farm, you'd have furrows, you'd have everything else that water would catch in those furrows, it wouldn't shoot off. And that's part of the problem. So we're going to definitely talk to Gallagher and Henry about that. But also adding 15 acres of, how much? We have 7 acres now?
We have 9.
9, we're going to 22, so we're adding 13 acres of storm storage. That's going to help a lot, whether the water's sheeting or not, should handle the problem.
Hi, my name is Peter Walter. I live next to the 16912 Steeple Chase. For the last several years, I've been calling the village on that issue because every year we get the runoff from the field. It's not just the water, I don't care about that. We get all the corn stalks, the corn cobs, and all that debris coming in our yard. When we did that last fix, that helped for a while. And before that, they used to stake hay bales in there to kind of slow the flow and debris coming in. But we had, the last time we had engineers come by and they said maybe they build like a small berm or something back there to divert the water, like maybe to the retention pond down by the townhomes. That it just comes right towards us. We're at that point, I guess.
Well, one of the things that, and we didn't mention this, by law, the flow patterns have to stay the same, correct? They have to you have to continue to follow the flow patterns that were in before your storm, before your subdivision was built. So the flow patterns from the farm, wherever they went to before, they still have to go to the same place, so you can't divert them to another location. So that's one of the issues that we have to address. But that's why part of what we're going to do is we're going to talk to the farm to see what we can do with the farm. Part of what we're doing as well is trying to add some retention up on the other side as well. So I'll try to help that system. So.
Mayor, if I could one more thing, if the resident's going to, Greg is going to hand out his card, so we can just get communication going.
Yeah, because we're 15 minutes late for our regular board meeting, and this wasn't on the agenda, so we have to move forward because we have a lot of things to cover tonight. And curfew at 9 o'clock. We probably will all be late for we're essentials.
How about talk about that?
Yes, you have a question?
Just curious, how is this flow supposed to stay the same if the flow from the farm is not staying the same?
That's what the engineers are going to look at, but the flow path of any subdivision can't divert water from the flow path that was there, correct?
That's required to grow.
Because it does make sense, even though you make the reservoir or this retention area bigger, it's still not going downstream from there, it's coming at houses. So the flow pattern has changed. It doesn't go downstream through this reservoir / retention area.
Water is not supposed to go in.
It just comes and flows.
So, yeah, so this isn't the time to continue to have this debate. We need to move on to our next meeting. So I'll take a motion to adjourn. Call the roll.
Second. Thank you. Trustee Pat? Yes. Trustee Healy?
Yes.
Trustee Calabro?
Here.
Trustee Katsinas?
Here.
Trustee Mahoney?
No, it's an aye. We're during the meeting.
Mayor Pico?
Aye. We're adjourned. 5 minutes.